This is Luke from Inside Chaos. If you don't already know, I am from Auckland, New Zealand. So you'll notice a lot of the content on my channel will focus towards the value proposition, the shipping, as well as availability for Kiwis within New Zealand. So in New Zealand, Kickstarter projects tends to be released on a Tuesday or Wednesday, stupidly early in the morning. That equates probably to the States around Monday or Tuesday morning. If you're an international viewer, welcome, and I'm honored to have you watching the stream of mine. In New Zealand, our time zone is UTC plus 12 on average. It's on 12, it's average 12 because we have daylight savings, and it can range from between plus 11 to plus 13. So currently in New Zealand, we are plus 13 UTC. Uh, so if you want to follow me, just be aware that that's the time zone difference. So the one of the things I'm not sure that you guys face, but I face every so often, and it does bug me a little bit, and it's about early birds, especially the 24-hour early birds. And today I'll take a look at two early bird projects which you may be interested in, and two other projects. So on average, I'll probably try to release between 4 and 5 Kickstarter projects that has caught my eye. And yeah, so let's start off with the first one, and the one I really want to kick off, and the reason for this particular video is Primal Awakening, because Primal Awakening, when it was released this morning, it had a 24-hour early bird. So you notice here that I'm already all in. Well, gameplay all in anyway. I'm fairly sure there will be more content available. And so the difference between the early bird all in and the early bird gameplay all in and just the gameplay all in is 10 euros. So you notice that down here it is 249. If you catch it within the first 24 hours, it will be 239. And at the time of recording this, there's 13 hours to go. Hopefully I can get this out with a little bit under 12 hours to go. So if you're interested, back this now, and then that way you'll have an opportunity to save 10 euros, and then decide whether you want to back this at the end of the project or not. There's still 13 days to go, and hopefully that should give you enough time to check out all the other contents out there, all the gameplays, and any other stretch goals that may come out. So what is Primal Awakening? So Primal Awakening is based on a video game called Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter was interesting because even though you're there to craft equipment, a lot of the gameplay tends to be more around skill and about positioning your character in relation to the monster you're fighting against. Because if you're fighting a massive dragon, the scale is so large that if you just shot an arrow at it, it might do minimal damage, because if you hit like the leg and the scale, that's not going to do anything. But if you did like a headshot towards like a weak point, say the eye or the throat, the mouth, that kind of stuff, that's when it's important. So this particular game, Primal The Awakening, was very interesting to me because it did that tactical aspect of fighting, essentially something that's humongous. So your positioning of whether you're at the front of the monster, the back of the monster, or to either side of the flanks, makes it very important to your ability to fight this monster. So let's say you're fighting a Triceratops and you're fighting head on. It's got, if you don't know what Triceratops is, they've got this huge shield that's above their head to protect their neck and essentially the rest of the body. If you shot an arrow or you jump and launch a sword attack on that shield, you're not going to do anything because you're just hitting bone. So what you really want to do is you want to go around the side or the back to essentially hit the more squishier parts, the one that's not as protected as a bone shield. So this is a co-op boss battler, and you win by beating the monster. Funny enough. The thing that interested me was it's also a deck crafting. As you level up your character, you find more skills to then craft your deck so that you'll know what kind of skill is available to use because you're the one who made it. So I like that customization where I can control certain outcomes, even though there is luck in what you tend to draw. But I have friends that really, really dislike dice. So he has the worst luck in dice, essentially just like you see from Crackalope, and tends to roll the worst numbers. So I'm fairly sure he'll be pretty interested in this one. And he has played Dominion. So if you don't know what Dominion is very much a deck building game. Uh, so hopefully Primal would also spark his interest towards this kind of genre of games. Uh, the other thing that was super interesting to me was what was it? Was the terrain. So, actually, let me go back. Let's see. Yeah, this is where I don't like these kind of Kickstarter projects layout because they just put so much, was it, content of what you get in the game rather than how the game's supposed to play that it's hard to figure out um, where to go without like scrolling all the way down or all the way up or even multiple times just to find the content that you want. So let's see, have I missed it already? So the gameplay was what I was talking about. It was a sector system. So you are either on one of the four regions and the monster will rotate and face different directions as it goes around or as the game progresses, and you're supposed to position yourself in the best position possible. So you notice that this guy looks to be catching the attention of the monster and hitting it face on when he's being supported by his teammates on the side. The other thing I also really like about this game, which I have not seen done well, and I'm not 100% sure this is done well as well, but is enough to intrigue me, and this is the environment. So let me drop over to here. So a lot of the gameplay is you'll have a wall or a tree, but the only thing that really impacts you in terms of gameplay aspect is line of sight. So whether you can see the monster or the enemy, or whether the enemy or monster can see you, will determine what the enemy will do. And but this game, however, was very interesting because based on the terrain that you happen to be within, will determine what kind of bonuses that you kind of get or detriments that you'll get. So if you're in, I don't even know how you pronounce this, Bethonus, if you happen to start your turn in here, you may heal a damage token. With the brush, you can hide. With this, was it Sirike? You can do additional damage, and so forth. You've got the one of the more interesting thing was this plateau. Not even sure if I said that right. Sorry. Is if you end your turn here, you may climb it by putting your miniature on it, and then when the monster has a reaction, you can, was it on the, as a gameplay, you can literally jump onto the monster's back. Now I have not seen any game that does a mechanic like this where you're there, and not only are you just fighting the monster by the monster's or the enemy's feet, you manage to get on top of his back to try and do, I don't know, just stab at it or just attack it as you wish. But that is such an interesting mechanic, and I'm very interested to see where they go with the terrain. And I would hope that in the future, more games will look at using this kind of mechanic more, where the terrain actually makes a difference in what you can or can't do. Uh, so the stretch goals, oops. So the stretch goals tends to be around, let's see if I can find it. The stretch goals tends to be around getting new monsters and what looks like new hunters. Have I missed it? Yep, so day 2 was a monster, that looks, day 3 is a monster that you're hunting, and originally I must have thought that this was a hunter, but I think this is essentially their picture to say what's more to come. chances are it's going to be more monsters, but we'll see how this campaign progresses. So for those in New Zealand and actually everywhere else, the interesting thing about this is, will there be a retail edition? Now, they clearly states that their plans include a future worldwide retail distribution of the game, based on the success of this game. And looking at it, it's going to be successful. There's no question about it. So what does that mean for you? That will mean, well, first of all, whether it goes to retail or not will may determine whether you want to buy this game or not. So chances are, even if it goes to retail, it'll be much later than what than when you will get this game if you had backed this on Kickstarter. So your bonus for backing on Kickstarter will be to get this game early. And looking at this game, it'll probably be a lot earlier. And the funny thing about the stretch goals is they didn't also say the stretch goal was Kickstarter exclusive. So based on that, you could assume that none of the content will be Kickstarter exclusive, but you probably have to pay for each additional content that's available. And looking at some of the historical games that has done something like this, even these side expansions, so like this Curse of Sapphire, this Myth, they may not even be released on retail, and if they do, chances are it'll be from their own website, so you're gonna have to pay for shipping for those anyway, and chances are the retail copy of the game would just be the base game. So if you're interested at all in any of the expansion, then it is good to get on Kickstarter, essentially back it now, and in that way not only will you get the game early, and you will also have the expansion, which in the future they may not even be available. So if I was to look at the shipping on this, I think the shipping for New Zealand is actually not too bad. Let's take a look. So shipping for New Zealand is 30 to 40 euro, and if you're that is actually based on just the base game. So it is based on the 139 euro pledge. So, and personally for me, I look at the shipping to see whether it will cover by at least a third. And the reason why I chose a third is because of weight. So the higher the price of a board game is, chances are there's going to be a lot more miniature or content, and that increases the weight of the game. And well, not even the weight, it's also the size. So most shipping in the world is either based on just weight base or based on the size of the shipping carton. So the more expensive a game is, chances are it's going to be either bigger or heavier. So I think that for me, a third is a fair shipping price to get to New Zealand, because like I said, we're so far away. But saying that, I do believe this game will get to New Zealand. So if you're just looking for just the base game, so you can just wait for the retail edition. I believe that will actually go to New Zealand. So the next one I would like to take a look at is Core of Madness. Happens to be at the shipping already, but let's take a look at shipping. Shipping is 25 euro. The pledge of the game is 40 euros. I'll tell you what the early bird means. So for me, this value isn't as worth it, or it's not as value for money for Kiwis, because this is clearly over half for a game that is 40 euro, and you're paying more than half in shipping. But let's go back to the top. And so what are you getting in for your early bird? So in the early bird, you're getting essentially a copy of the game, of course, any unlocked stretch goals, the art book, and the custom solo dice. I do like this custom solo dice because I'll show you what the other dice is. The other dice is essentially just a standard six-sided dice, which is extremely boring looking. So it's a little bit neat. It's a nice little thing to have. It's nothing game breaking. So, but yeah, I backed this for now because Well, as you can see, there's still 34 hours to go. I'm going to take a closer look at this later, but this was one of the games that interests me. And funny enough, this game also had to be released a second time because the first one failed. Uh, and the first one didn't get as much traction. I'm guessing there's a number of reasons. My my biggest problem with the first particular campaign was the fact that the original. Well, let's see. So you can see this picture, right? This picture is based on Cthulhu, and so what this game is about is kind of a tower defense with a take that element to it, with some hand management and deck building. And so if you have ever played, was it Mansion of Madness, Arcane Horror, uh, what's it, Arkham Horror, so not Arkham Horror, Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror, you are essentially playing as a good guy, an investigator who is trying to stop Cthulhu from entering the world. Uh, in Core of Madness, you are playing essentially as a what I like to think is the high priest cultist, and as a cultist, you are trying to summon Cthulhu or one of the ancient ones, and you're fighting against investigators who are trying to stop you. So the tower defense aspect of it is you are the high priest of a cult, and you are trying to stop these investigators who are trying to prevent you from summoning your ancient one. Uh, so this game was it essentially ends when someone has sacrificed all their cultists, and then you will start scoring all your points by the number of cultists you have versus the goals and that you have achieved. Um, so so if I had to go back, so previously, let's see. So previously, even though Cthulhu was on the box, you did not have Cthulhu, which for me was weird, and it looked like they were trying to add it as part of a stretch goal. That could be why the previous campaign failed, because you add a popular IP icon like Cthulhu as part of your main theme of your game, but you don't actually add Cthulhu in. I think that really detracts from your campaign and project by doing something like that. And I've seen this in the past with essentially the Harry Potter Quidditch game. In that one, you were had essentially two generic teams, but you have no known characters from the Harry Potter universe. Like Harry Potter wasn't even there, so it was called something like Harry Potter Quidditch, and it just bombed, and it bombed hard. So they had to cancel it. They made some excuse about COVID, um, saying that that's why that project failed, and then they re-released it with a Kickstarter exclusive of Harry Potter, as well as some stretch goals, which will start adding all these other characters in. So, but sorry, I'm just rambling on. But looking at this one, I'm glad they add Cthulhu back in, because you kind of need the main IP to be there if you want people to be interested in your game. Uh, I'm not even going to try and pronounce these ancient ones, but essentially you get, I think you start with six, so you can start with Cthulhu, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yep, you got six ancient ones. You got some premium fire tokens because they got rid of the cardboard one due to, I think, the last project. They didn't think it was premium enough to catch people's eye, so they did that. Added some velvet bags in, crystals there. Like this one, I'm talking about, like this solar dice is just a boring six-sided dice. Um, so I won't go too deep into what this game is like, but essentially you flip a card. So you flip a card like this, and that will tell you where the investigators go, and you'll see the investigators' health at the bottom. And as you damage over time, it will slowly go down to zero and then die, and then you remove that particular investigator from the board. So if you didn't catch it early, the thing that caught my eye about this particular game was not only was it tower defense, because tower defense currently in the board game space is essentially more towards a solo game, because you're trying to, or solo or cooperative. But I tend to mess up the cooperative because people tend to play it more towards solo than cooperative, because usually you have some kind of quarterback who's trying to convince everyone to do something, and it's not that much fun for everyone else. So, but this particular game, it is a tower defense game, and it is for multiplayer. It's definitely not cooperative. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to slow down the other team players by causing um, traps and damages to them that they have to take care of while you try to defend your one. So it's about who can defend their particular space the best, and to determine who will win based on the points you will get. The thing I'm concerned about this particular game is your high priest cultist doesn't seem to have any kind of power, so it doesn't matter which of the four players you are. So I think they miss out a little bit of that, and that's largely because as a priest, you're not even focusing on an ancient one. So if you ever heard of the game Cthulhu Wars, or have played it, you're actually playing for that particular I guess cult. So if you're playing for the Cthulhu cult, then all your abilities and your spells and whatnot is very focused on Cthulhu. So each faction will be able to be very focused in terms of what they can and can't do and the special powers that they do have. But in this game, on one turn you could be focusing on Cthulhu, and on another, was it midway through, you can swap to, was it Nyarlathotep? Yeah, probably mispronounced that. And also, it doesn't stop another player also following the same ancient one as you are. So you could essentially have a section of the game where all four of you are worshipping Yig, because whoever you are, was it worshipping at the time, worship, um, they will then give you their abilities, or they'll bless you in terms of what you can do as a power. So that's what I'm concerned about, which is why even though I backed it early, I will still be watching this quite closely to see whether this game would really be fit for myself and my gaming group, or if it's just using a very popular IP and it suckered me in early, and then I'll just have to make sure that I don't get caught in the Kickstarter or crowdfunding FOMO and just back everything. So I'll still be following this very closely, and chances are I'll probably will drop this, but in the meantime, I I do get FOMO a lot. So I have backed the early bird and to just get the art book and just that dice for no other reason. Um, but if you missed it, it's not essential, because it's just essentially a dice and an art book. It adds nothing to gameplay and you don't save any money. Um, but again, the bad thing, as I mentioned before, was shipping is really high to New Zealand for a €40 game, and the shipping being €25. One of the things that I did notice was in the comments, it did say the game is not Kickstarter exclusive. So that's something you'll have to be aware of. The retail of the game is €55, and you'll get essentially everything within the Kickstarter campaign. All right, for me, this was one. Well, this is probably going to be the number one reason why I will probably drop this pledge instead of the early bird, um, because at €55, it may or may not come to New Zealand. So if it comes to New Zealand, great. What that will mean is I will get a chance to see more people play test this game, give their feedback and reviews, and then that will let me know as to whether I want to try this game or not. But because again, we're also in New Zealand, it may not even hit New Zealand, which means I could at least still wait to see what people say, and then order it overseas and still have to pay the shipping. But at least this time I will know what I'm getting as opposed to taking a risk and backing this project now. So the next one I'll look at is this game actually hasn't funded yet. Not sure why I'm in the middle of the page all the time, but I must have been researching some stuff. Uh, this one is, what would you say, probably about 60% of the way. I'm a little bit surprised this one hasn't funded yet. Um, this game is essentially let me scroll down. It's it's essentially a simultaneous action and variable scoring. So I do like my simultaneous actions, and if you're looking for examples of that, it will be, what was it? Seven Wonders is a good one. So Seven Wonders is everyone will draft a card and then pass the hand on. So what simultaneous actions means is everyone plays at the exact same time, choose something, review something, and then carry on. And one of the games that I recently got was Rival Restaurant. Super fun. It's very light. The game will probably last for an hour, but because it's simultaneous, it is what keeps the playtime down. So I've got friends that are happy to do long campaign games. We would play, what was it? Like games like, what was it, Eldritch Horror or Arkham Horror, and that will be easily be like a four even 8 hour game, depending on how many players we have. But then I also got friends that don't want any game that's over 2 hours, and ideally they want to play an hour game just so that they can get multiple games in a session than just play one long game. So simultaneous action games fits very nicely in that short 1 hour to hour and a half playtime, and that's why I'm a bit surprised it hasn't funded yet. So I'd like to highlight this game and hopefully get some interest in it. I haven't backed this yet because I also have a thing about backing games that hasn't quite reached its funding goal. But again, I've saved this and I'll be watching this quite closely. So what is this game? So you essentially win by just getting the highest score. Um, Historically, Galactic Raptor Games have released another game called Animal Kingdoms. Um, the rank was 4,000, was just over 4,000. Take that how you will, and it had a geek rating of 7.3. So anything over 7 is pretty decent. A good game tends to be around 8, and that's just people voting on average. Obviously, you take that with a pinch of salt because you'll have some games that are right at the top, but they're super hard, and sometimes I wonder whether they should be there in the first place because yes, there's quite a lot of people that are really interested in it, but it is so complex and the game it's harder to get to the table for a lot of players. So it looks, I don't know, I don't really know how they calculate it, but it's, yeah. So just take any of those rating, use it as some kind of indicator for yourself, but don't take it as gospel. Is essentially what I'm saying. Um, because it hasn't funded, there isn't any stretch goals. Shipping. Oh, so so in the game you're playing as one of 6, I guess, sea creature clans or races, if you would, which is quite nice because you don't really get to play as a lot of these, or you don't really get to represent one of these races in board games or in actually any genre quite a bit. So I think you can, like, if you feel like representing being, or if you like to play as, was it a seahorse clan, or there's crab, there's the octopus clan, sea turtles. Sea turtles is my favorite. I can see in the chat that some people like the manta ray. The weird one is the narwhal. So one of the designer or creator must really love the narwhal because yeah, they've got that as one of the main clans. And the interesting thing about this game is in the simultaneous actions is there's a fixed number of actions you can have, and one of the point of difference is if you're the only one that chose your particular action, you'll get a bonus, which is pretty handy. So if you look at this, you can see there's a solo ability on the bottom right, and that will be the bonus that you can have, and each of these cards will have one. This one, as far as I can tell, I don't see anything about retail, but it also doesn't really say whether it's a Kickstarter exclusive or not. And yeah, so at standard game, it is 39 US dollars. I'll let you guys work out what these are for yourself if you're interested in this particular campaign. Shipping is 19 US dollars for essentially New Zealand, and this is the number one reason why I haven't backed this yet, because at the basic game is 39 US dollars, and the shipping is just, well, it's about half, and half is a little bit on the high side in terms of value proposition. But I guess it'll come down to whether I want this game early, or whether I would really like this game at all, because even if I don't want it early, I may not even be able to get it in New Zealand, and if I was to get it overseas and still pay for shipping, it may be higher than paying this. What would this be? This would be just under $60. So yeah, the value for money aspect, not great. With the shipping being half, is at 39. I do like the fact it is 39 US dollars, which makes it a lighter game. But again, not with the shipping, will make this essentially a 60 US dollars, which equates to be about 90 New Zealand dollars, which is a little bit high for a lighter game. And at the same time, it doesn't have any stretch goals or Kickstarter exclusives, so who knows whether I'll back this or not. So, and the last one we'll take a look as Castle of Mad King Ludwig Collector's Edition. Yeesh, that's a mouthful. What this game is essentially a remake of the Castles of Mad King Ludwig. It is essentially a big box collection. Comes with the original 2 expansion, and it adds on to expansion. So what is this game? If you don't already know, this game is a room tile laying game with what I think they call it a I cut and you choose element. So what I cut and you choose element is I choose for this particular game, actually let's just talk about this game. I choose a bunch of tiles or a bunch of rooms, and I can assign a price to each one of them, and then I will try to sell those rooms to you, and then from those options, then you get to choose which one you want. So if there was a room I really wanted, then I may make it super expensive to buy, just so that you are discouraged to try and buy it, and it's to my benefit to buy it. But obviously, the higher I make it, the more I would have to spend. So it's something that you're gonna have to balance, and this game is all about trying to get the players to buy the rooms that you want them to buy. So it benefits you that they buy your room. What else would you get? You get a bit of storage. You get some weighted swan player markers. Not sure if that's super great or not, but I do like my premium component, so I ain't gonna complain. You get some new cards like bonus cards and the King Favors. You get 8 detail miniatures. So the detail miniatures are for the Towers expansion. So I'll show you what that means. And so the original game was 2 to 4 players, or was it 1? I think it's 2 to 4 players. And this edition is will add an extra 5th player to the board. Now I'm a sucker for good storage, So Game Trace has been doing reasonably well, very well indeed, and you can see the game trace that they have. So I really like a good storage system because that will get the game out earlier. Like anything that will minimize my setup time and increase my playtime is always more than welcome. But it's up to you whether you think these kind of storage solutions worth it. But the fact that this comes with it already is a big plus in my book. They've redone the artwork. These looks absolutely gorgeous, which is why I'm also super interested in this. Um, what was it? So, and I guess how do you win? You win by essentially getting the most points. So the first edition of the game, or the original game, had a rank of 133 on Board Game Geek, and the Geek rating was 7.6. Take that as you will, but that's a pretty good indicator of a decent game. But obviously, do your own research and figure whether it is a game that's fit for yourself and your gaming group. Right. So these are the 8 miniatures. They are decent. I'm not 100%. I think they are painted, which would be good. Otherwise, yeah. So the cool part is the painted 3D tower, so that will be awesome. Uh, they've redone the board. All right. So I haven't quite seen something like this before, but because it was laid out this way, see, I wonder if there's a bigger picture. Nope. All right, let's go back to it. So originally, I was thinking, what is this game? Am I gonna have to roll a dice and kind of like slowly go across these numbers, kind of like a little bit like snake and ladders type style? And then I worked out that no, this numbering system is your scoring track, which is pretty neat. But it makes your scoring track very convoluted in terms of looking at it, because it doesn't go in the straight line like most like what I was used to. So if you introduce this to someone, they might just go, I wonder what this game is, because they expect the scoring track to be around the edges of the board, and the fact that they've done it differently make this very unique. Uh, and these storage spaces essentially for all the rooms that you are wanting to essentially buy to build your best castle as you can. Um, you can't really see it, but you can see an outline here, and each of these outline is essentially an indent for the storage system to sit nicely into. Uh, Being a collector's edition, I do like to see this. It will be missing out by, well, it will be, yeah, if they didn't have this, that will just take a little bit away from that premiumness of a collector's edition. So I think they did very well with this. Then you've got your standard collector's edition. Still has quite a lot of cardboard components, but if you want some metal coins, some nicely, I think this is poker-like chips, some swan tokens, like plastic swan tokens, then you might want to do the royal upgrade. Then you've got your colossal upgrade, which is everything bigger by like 4 times the size. So let's take a look. So this is the standard room tile. If you bought the colossal edition, this is your room tile. Now, I have a slight issue with this. The Looking at this game, you've got a decent sized board already that will run through the middle of your gaming table, but each player is also building up their own castle, and the castle is not going to be small. So I have a concern that this game would have a large table hog, and you will really need quite a decent sized table to even play this game. For myself, I have a kind of a smallish coffee table that I tend to play my board game on. This is not going to fit on that. This will probably have to go on a dining table. So that's something to be aware of if table size is an issue for you. And so even though they have a colossal edition, that that may or may not work for it. So I have the what was it? The big version of oh God, I forgot the name of the game. I might have to find it, of the Panda game. I'll probably, yeah, I'll probably make a comment on it below to get the correct name. So I have a large version of that game, but that large version is fixed towards that size. This game, however, is you've made your central board bigger, and you made your playing area in front of each player even bigger. So you this may not even be a standard dining room table anymore. You probably need an extra large dining table to even play this game, or just play on the floor, because just by the sheer presence of this game on the table, it may not even fit. Um, so the shipping itself to New Zealand is 40 US dollars, which is decently priced. Obviously, it's always still more than our cousins in Australia, but again, we're New Zealand, so shipping to New Zealand tends to be more expensive. The nice thing is there is no difference between a collector and a royal edition. So based on that, the royal is has better value proposition for myself, because obviously I always like the premium condition, and at 130 US dollars, and that's being 40, that is just under a third. Whereas if I just got the cent collector, and that's 99, so that would be about 40% of the cost, which brings the cost a little bit high for the collector's game. But it is a big box game, so I am aware of that, and it being priced at 99 US dollars is pretty good. I think Terraforming Mars was more expensive than that, just for the big box, if I recall correctly. Uh, the Colossal is then not really worth it as well, because that is 83 for the shipping. Yeah, so in my particular view, I think the best value for money to New Zealand, and I think for most countries actually, is the Royal Edition or the Royal Pledge of this particular campaign. One of the things I didn't really talk about was the stretch goals. The stretch goals looks to be new rooms, and as far as I can tell, none of them say that they are Kickstarter exclusive. Right? So nothing here actually says any of this is Kickstarter exclusive. So like most big box game, I expect this to go to retail. Chances are it will be a year or two later than anyone who's backed the campaign. So the value of backing the campaign is obviously to get it earlier, and chances are the price might be cheaper, but with that shipping cost that you're having to pay, 40 US dollars for to ship to New Zealand makes that price very high to New Zealand, and chances are when this does come to retail in New Zealand, this will be a lot cheaper at MSRP. If you can afford to wait, the value proposition will be wait for retail, because there's nothing here that really shouts that you should get this on the campaign, and if you don't, then you will miss out on something, because this particular, so they did mention, what was it, two new expansions, but the two new expansions will fit in the collector's edition box, so it doesn't look like a add-on that you have to add. So yeah, if money is an issue for you, then wait for retail. But otherwise, to get it early, um, then if you were to pledge it, I would say get the Royal Pledge to support the campaign and to get it early for yourself. So that's all for me for today. So again, let's take a look at the Primal Awakening. Hopefully I'll release this video soon, and there is probably, by the time I release it, there's probably about 11 hours to go. take a look at Primal Awakening. I think this has a lot of promise to it. Like I said, there's your terrain aspect and your tactical aspect of how you fight these monsters. The concern I have, which I forgot to mention for this particular game, was from some of the videos I looked at, they seem, and the reviews seem to say that it was more like a puzzle game. So it wasn't so much a monster boss battler, but more of a puzzle to try and get the most damage in, and if you don't, then that could be detrimental to how you beat that monster. But we'll see how this campaign goes, and I will watch to see what gets released, what new information, and if there was any more gameplays that's been released. But yeah, if you're interested, take a look at Primal The Awakening, and back the gameplay all in early bird, because if you want to save €10, you've got just less than 12 hours just to save that €10. If you don't care, then obviously you can wait to, or if you missed out or you were too late on my video, then it'll be €249, or just do a core pledge and add on whatever you wish to add on. I think later on I'll probably do a more focused video on Primal The Awakening, as well as Castle of Mad King Ludwig. Potentially may do a Core of Madness, but I suspect that one's not going to be big enough, and with a shipping proposition, I don't think it's as good a value proposition for Kiwis in New Zealand. So anyway, thank you very much for staying to watch the video. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.